Welcome to the Jimmy Jam Sessions podcast, and pretty much, as always, if you enjoy the content we've been doing, no matter if it's any of the hockey content, the series, food reviews, and all the entertainment stuff we have done with tier lists and everything, there's the subscribe button. Definitely hit that whenever you get an opportunity. We're doing this on Instagram, and this will be going on YouTube eventually afterwards. So, as always, we appreciate you. I would be in much more of a better mood, but here we are again. Kansas City's done it again. But I'm going to be really, in some way, shape, or form, kind of biased in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how to even put it, but we've got a rematch of a Super Bowl. So, of all the great teams that have made it into the playoffs this year, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a lot. And even the teams that barely made it, like Denver, Denver seriously has a way of now with a young new quarterback in Sean Payton, and Green Bay gets to the end, and and Minnesota loses to Detroit, even 6-7 seeds, they have opportunities to make it, but we kind of figured who the big dogs were. We kind of knew who was in the Super Bowl bubble. And in the end, we didn't expect Washington to be there. But we can bitch and complain that Kansas City is going to attempt the three-peat. But I'll get to, God forbid, I'll get to Kansas City in just a moment. I don't know what to tell you about all my Philly friends that I have made in I would probably say about a quarter of my life, I've ran into a lot of people, whether it was at Penn State, the clubs. I have a majority of friends that are Philly-based, from Philly, and I root for them. I'm not a hardcore Philly person. I respect Philadelphia, but as a Penguins fan, we're supposed to hate the Flyers, but I don't hate everybody else. Don't hate the Eagles. Don't hate the Sixers. I don't even hate the Phillies, and they're good. And even the soccer team's not bad. The Eagles, the best thing the Philadelphia Eagles have done in the last 5 years is not return to the Super Bowl where they lost to Kansas City. But it's not even just drafting Jalen Hurts and getting Jalen Carter and all that. The best decision they ever made was getting Saquon Barkley. And we can sit there and say the memes, but those memes are true. You literally need to thank the New York Giants for doing irrational and what one of my old cousins, friends of mine would say, make very bad decisions. Well, a bad decision was giving Daniel Jones $48 million a year instead of franchising Saquon Barkley. And Saquon left. He had options to go wherever he wanted to, and Philadelphia gave him the best deal. And he's an Eagle. He's close to home. And he is a big catalyst to why the Philadelphia Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. It's not even because he could have broken the rushing record. He's a big catalyst because, for years they've always had a great running game. They always have, because they've always lived on, DeAndre Swift and a couple others. And I look at all the rushing people, like Gainwell's good and a couple others. And it's just not necessarily, you don't have that number one spark plug, and they went and got him, and they gave him a good deal. And Saquon's going to play in his first Super Bowl. $1.18, including the first play from scrimmage for the Eagles after Washington goes down and drives the Commanders down. And he does not. He drives like a 60+ yard touchdown run. Nothing. He had 3 today, including like a 4-yarder, and he had like another as well. Jalen Hurts had 3 touchdowns on his own as well. That just shows how the game plan was for a team like the Washington Commanders, who nobody thought was going to be this potent. After what Washington did to Detroit, I sat there and said on the video last week, and it's still up, and I know these will age because not a lot of people know the channel, obviously. When Washington beat Detroit, this game was going to be almost not necessarily a pick-em, but, Philadelphia was, in fact, I believe, -4.5, 5. But I don't even have to go above and talk to my friend Chad. I really don't. First of all, I mean, I'll get to Washington's future in a second, but this game, I can't even go as I look at the actual stats. Like Jayton was, 29 of 48 for 255 and a touchdown, and a passer rating of 70, almost 73. But I mean, Zach Ertz was a former Eagle, and he was your leading receiver. You had a lot of people that can do stuff. I mean, McLaurin did have a couple catches. A former Falcon, Zachy has had 4 catches. And even Daniels did have to make a couple plays here and there. But this game went down to basically not just the Philly defense, but turnovers do, in fact, hurt and destroy a team and destroy you in a game. And even if you try to make a comeback out of it, the damage has already been done. It's like a baby ripping it's like your freaking messed up 4-year-old ripping down your cabinet and thinking it's okay. I'm gonna pick it up and we'll just get it. No, it's not like that. The damage has already been done. So it was, I believe, if I look at it, it was 4 turnovers for including a messed up punt. So and they just led the touchdowns and they led to points. Hurts had 3 touchdowns. Barkley had 3 touchdowns. And I just look at Philadelphia and what they did, and I'm just sitting here going, this was probably, I don't want to sit there and say it was meant to be, but if Detroit would have won that game, I think we may be talking in a completely different stratosphere. But Philadelphia got home field because it has a Washington and had to take advantage of a certain, and weather wasn't an issue. It was like a 34-40 degree day, but this was Philadelphia, who was destined to basically do what needed to be done to try to take care of business and get back to the Super Bowl. So proud to see my friends, whether they were at Players Indigo, people I know around this area, people I know that that aren't Philly people that are Eagles fans. I know a friend of mine that I was at his house, and I'm friends with his wife, and he's a diehard Eagles fan, and I was at his house watching the Eagles beat Tom Brady and the Patriots in that shootout with Nick Foles. I've never been more happy for him in my life, and I miss those people. The wife, she's gone, but I'm so happy for him. Had to dog pound him out. Had to get the big dog pile on everybody just to be happy for him. And everybody else, that I met at the clubs that were Philly based, they're always saying EAGLES Eagles. I keep hearing it over and over. I have a friend. I'm I don't know if I won't even want to say friend, but I had an old colleague from the other place who now lives in Texas. Is a psychology major. He's a diehard Eagles fan, and I remember he cried when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and who knows what he's about now. Tie. So, having said that, Philadelphia, note, you can sit there and be happy you're going back to the Super Bowl. Philadelphia people, this is a redemption trip. For Kansas City, it's a business trip. And there should be no argument. You're going to New Orleans. It's indoors. This is not going to be for the weak of heart. Now, I'm happy for Philadelphia and would like to see them win a second Super Bowl. Do they deserve it? I think they do. They showed it. They showed it. Detroit did not get the job done. Washington tried. Minnesota fell apart. Green Bay's not ready yet. San Francisco's beat up. The Rams fell through, and who knows what their future is going to be. So this was Eagles. All right, everybody else is here. We got the NFC title game. Let's get the job done. And they're going to have that. They're going to have the opportunity to redemption. Now, I do not necessarily, in any way, shape, or form, want to make this an absolute bashing or a biased mixed about why Kansas City just continues to find ways to win, because they did. 32-29. Don't want to sit here and say that it's gone down to basically pretty much calls or here and there after everything that happened with the Houston game. But they did get a call on the interception that should have been an interception, but it was called a catch. And they did get the 4th down call, in which Josh Allen was told at one point he got the 1st down, and then 3 other officials basically confirmed that he did not. And it was never measured. It was never even challenged. It should be challenged, but 3 officials basically overruled that and said he never made it. 5 plays later, Kansas City's in the end zone. Now, we can sit here and go off on every little knick-knack about they got calls. Well, they got 2 calls again tonight. As far as Josh Allen, he just keeps finding ways to keep his team going. They ran the football. They knew without a shadow of a doubt that Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, was going to basically try to ruin his entire ego. So they ran the football, and it worked. I mean, they ran the football hard. 13 carries, 85 yards for James Cook. A couple of them were big. A couple of them were semi-long runs. He had 3 catches as well. Josh Allen did not have to throw the football that much, and when he did, he was on point. To a point. Let me just make the thing. 22 of 34, 237, 2 touchdowns. Did not turn the ball over. Had a pass rating of 104. I mean, in my personal opinion, I think he got that 4th down, but we all know referees are going to have their say. I don't know why they just did not look at that over in New York, but we all know pretty much. We could sit here and just start putting every godforsaken thing out that Kansas City was known to win this game. Now, we can sit there and flip the coin on this. Well, Kansas City drove down the field 5 plays and scored. What do you want them to do? Well, Buffalo drove down the field and tied the game. I mean, barely, but drove down the field and tied the game. And we could have thought immediately with 6:15 left that Mahomes was just going to drain the damn clock. And they got a couple plays out where, of all people, a former Steeler, Juju Smith-Schuster, only had 2 freaking catches in that game. If I double check and look. Yes, 2 catches. And they were both outs and 2 catches for 60 yards. And that's enough to mess your entire defense up. Their leading receiver was their gadget, Xavier Worthy, who everybody in the draft passed up, and he was the fastest person in the draft. And he had 6 catches for 85 yards. That's pretty much the chagrin of, well, nobody wanted him, so the best team in the league has to go and get him. That shows, hey, other 31 other teams do better. And how funny is it that the 4th down play or the 3rd down play that sealed it was Samaje Perine, and that was his only thing he ever did in the entire game. But that's also Andy Reid getting at you for he's a mastermind of what he does. They also ran the ball fairly decent. Kareem Hunt, 64 yards and a touchdown. But then there's also Patrick Mahomes, who everybody on God's freaking earth, ever since the Houston game, is afraid to hit him. He ran 2 touchdowns. Now again, like I said, I segue back to flip the coin. Kansas City could have drove down the field, but the Buffalo Bills stopped them short, so they made him kick a 35-yarder, so there was hope. And then go figure, Steve Spagnuolo did his thing on 4th down and basically rushed it in where they made Josh Allen run for his life, and Kincaid almost catches that football. This also goes down to, I know everyone on the planet Earth is going to go off on, well, they would have made the 2-point conversions. They missed 2 of them. And if they miss and they make even one of them, it changes the outlook of the game. I think when they got that touchdown near the end of the first half, I think they should have just took the extra point and gone in the half. But when you're against the Kansas City Chiefs, you got to do. It's almost like you have to. It's like making money. You got to spend money to make money. You got to take risks. Against Kansas City, you have to take risks, even if it is the Arrowhead Invitational. And yes, Nick Wright, I did say that. You're welcome. And he'll get that free trip to New Orleans eventually. So we can bark about the 4th down call. We can bark about it was that an interception or a catch. And then I think I saw somebody put up the NFL rule book and say this is what it's supposed to be. Well, we're not trying to show off that we're better than others. The fate of humanity has now gone into Philadelphia and Kansas City in New Orleans, 2 weeks in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. It is a rematch of 2 years ago where we saw Patrick Mahomes on a high ankle sprain run a 35, 38-yard run like he was never hurt. and they drain the clock at the 1 yard line, and Butker kicks the field goal, and Eagles don't have any time. I'm gonna try to burn through this real quick while I'm on Instagram Live, because this is gonna go on YouTube eventually. Let's just go through one at a time before I even get to the Super Bowl. First off, this will make Chad happy, and a couple other people I know that are Washington fans. This is gonna make Chad happy. You got a bright future. Here's 3 things you got to worry about for the Washington Commanders. It's 3 positives. And I hope he's listening, and if he catches this on YouTube, great. And I know another guy that I used to work with at the other place. Him and I would go back and forth on wrestling and everything like that in Washington, and he picked on me all the time just because of who I was at the shop. But he's a diehard Washington guy, and he has every right to be happy about the future. You got your future franchise. You got your franchise quarterback. You have ownership. And we saw earlier in the weekend that the old owner, Dan Snyder, is not happy. Well, go hide somewhere. I don't care where you hide, because the Mathis family should be very happy about what they're going to go to. They're going to get a stadium in probably about 3 to 4 years, and now you very well are going to also have a hell of a lot of cap room. So you're not going to pay Jaden Daniels a lot, and you have the opportunity to go out and get pieces for your team, and Washington is going to be fine. Probably for the next maybe 5 to 6 years, I think Philadelphia and Washington are going to run the NFC East. Dallas has got a lot of work to do, and who knows, they may have to do a major rebuild, but we know that Jerry Jones will never do that. And hiring Brian Schottenheimer, I don't know if that's going to be the case. We don't know that. But we don't know what's going to happen if Michael Parsons will be there or not. But we know Dak's going to come back with $65 million. We don't know about Dallas, and the Giants are going to be a massive rebuild, and they kept their head coach and GM. But the Morrow family is biting themselves in the ass if you can do that, because you let Saquon Barkley walk to your rival. And so now I believe it's now up to Philadelphia and Washington to run that division. And I think it's going to be competitive for the next handful of years. And you don't even need to change the name. I wouldn't even go back to the Redskins. You got your future. You've got a plant set forward. It's the Washington Commanders. You're set. You're going to be fine. And I think for the next handful of years, you're going to compete in the playoff hunt. And I never was a Redskins fan, football team fan, never was a Washington fan. Would you have been all right seeing Washington back in the Super Bowl for the first time since the 90s? So think about that one. Kudos to Washington. That was kind of a cool thing to see. You just ran into a Philly team that was just ready to go at the start button. So cool enough for Washington. Buffalo, I just don't know if it's ever going to happen. I was messaging Zach Huey, who does Addict Talks on Spotify. He quoted out. He said Buffalo will never do it. It's not even that. Buffalo will never do it as long as Kansas City is alive and breathing, and as long as Andy Reid is still coaching, and as long as Mahomes, who is still 29, he's got probably another decade left of trying to catch up to Brady. Buffalo's not going to get there. Baltimore will not get there. And I know the AFC is loaded with quarterback talent. It's a Buffalo. It's a Baltimore. It's Cincinnati. It's Cincinnati at the end, they were starting to get the pieces together. It just was too late in the middle of the season and then to the end. If Tua gets there, Trevor Lawrence is healthy. If Sean Payton and Bo Nix start doing well in Denver, that they now make that division a lot more competitive. If Justin Herbert continues to get some more pieces in for the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, I did a video earlier before the season started. I said the NFC West was the worst division in football, just because as long as Patrick Mahomes is alive and breathing, no one's winning that division except the Chiefs. Now it very well may be a competitive division, and now Pete Carroll's going to basically pretty much he's now the coach for the Raiders. A little bit more competitiveness in that division, but as long as Mahomes is still alive and walking the face of this earth, and Kansas City continues to do everything they can to say, hey, you just want to win rings? Come to Kansas City. Oh God, that was Brady. You want to win a ring? Come to New England. That worked except for Randy Moss. And that was the undefeated season. But it's Kansas City. I mean, I feel for Buffalo. The city of Buffalo needs some positivity. The Sabres aren't good. They don't have anything else. The indoor lacrosse team's okay. But the city of Buffalo needs a Super Bowl. They're getting a new stadium in 2 years, which is fine. But the city of Buffalo, this was the best version of Buffalo we've seen them. And they beat Kansas City during the season, during the regular season, but that means jack to Patrick Mahomes. It means nothing to Kansas City and to people who run that team. And as long as Mahomes is running that shtick in Kansas City, no one. I mean, we can sit there and say the old school thing: the championships goes through Kansas City. Nick Wright's jumping around, running naked because he knows, hey, no one's ever beaten the Arrowhead Invitational. We didn't even have to have it last year because they were on the road last year, and they still won. It's a shame. I mean, I don't want to sit there and say it's a shame because I'm trying to be down the road, but it's hard when you're putting together a dynasty, and I know dynasties are such a big thing. As my light went out, but that's okay because, quite honestly, people, we sit there and we try to do everything we possibly can to try to preserve opportunities for other teams in this league, and nobody could beat the Patriots. Like literally nobody could touch them. Now nobody on God's green earth can sit there and touch Kansas City. Only 2 teams touched them. That light's probably going to go out again sometime. Buffalo beat them, and then Denver beat them 38-0 at the end of the year. Nobody cares. Dynasties are good for sports because that makes all the other teams try to do whatever they can to. It's not necessarily to try to get better. They're all trying to make teams to beat Patrick Mahomes. Back in the day when Brady was running the whole league, there were teams that were trying to build to beat Brady. It wasn't just to win the division. Not even to win your own division. It was just to beat Brady. And nobody could. I mean, Denver did a couple. Baltimore tried. Pittsburgh tried. Miami tried. Indy tried. Brady was king. Now it's Mahomes. You're doing everything you can to try to beat the Chiefs. They had won 11, 12 straight. It's now 16, 17 straight one-possession games they won. And another one today. So we can sit there and go off on everything. We can sit there and go that Buffalo missed two point conversion attempts. It's going to go down to those risks. And, Sean McDermott, the coach, he had to take some risks. And fortunately enough, it was a 3-point game. So you try to take what you have. But we also know Kansas City has a good defense. It's a top 5 defense. And Spagnuolo's never getting another head coaching job. He's probably set for life in Kansas City. I feel for Buffalo. I'd love to see Buffalo. Even I'm not a major Baltimore fan, but it would have been cool to see Baltimore go in there. Because we can sit there and go, well, Baltimore went in there, they would have won. Mahomes was never going to let anybody take their spot. Nobody. That's how good Kansas City is. And here we are in 2 weeks, on what is it? And what is it? And what is exactly is it going to be? February 9th. We get to go to New Orleans to see a rematch. Well, didn't we do that last year? Kansas City's had San Francisco twice. Now Kansas City's getting Philadelphia twice. I'm going to shut this bar down. And immediately I'm thinking to myself, well, Mahomes and Kansas City and that defense, they've always found ways to win. There's a video I did on my channel about the Kansas City dynasty, about what they had to do last year to win. And it was a lot. It was a lot of travel. It was going to Germany. They were, they had a lot of injuries. They were on the road majority of the playoff, and they still won. And it's sick, and to a point, it's sickening. And now they're going to get Philadelphia a second time. And there's almost a part of me where I know Kansas City's going to find a way to win. But I'm almost immediately thinking, and this might make some Philadelphia people happy, I almost think Philadelphia is going to win this game. I thought Buffalo was going to win. I think Saquon Barkley could very well be the catalyst, could very well be that piece. It's like the Penguins when they won the Cup in 2009. You needed the piece. And I think Saquon might be that piece. And it might be, and it's going to make me happy to see Saquon win a Super Bowl. I don't want to hear Steeler people getting upset that Kenny Pickett's going to win a Super Bowl before the Steelers had him or whatever. No, get that thought out of your mind. Immediately, I'm going to immediately think that Kansas City's probably going to be favored -3 or 3.5 just because they are the champions. It's a business trip for them. For Philadelphia, it's a redemption trip for them. So, Philadelphia people, I want you to think about this before you start climbing poles. You're facing the greatest human being in NFL history if your name's not Tom Brady. Probably the best offensive coach in history, the best defensive coordinator. This is the best situational team in the NFL. They've had so many one-possession wins. And yes, you can get on them about how they win, how they play, what plays they did, and yes, did they get a couple penalties? You're damn right they did. They got the 4th down call. They got the interception call. Did that make an influence of the game? It may have, it may not. We'll never know. Did Josh Allen make that 4th down? I think he did. The officials had to huddle and say, no, he didn't. But we will never know. The challenge flag was never thrown. But that should have been measured. Nobody wants to measure it. So I don't know if I want to believe in Skip Bayless because he threw that little myth that the NFL is trying to protect the Kansas City Chiefs so they can have that opportunity to get the three-peat while Taylor Swift is still in the box so they can show her face every 5, 10, 15 minutes because it brings revenue into the NFL, revenue to the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't want to believe that myth, although it isn't a bad one. Probably maybe the one thing that Skip Bayless has actually said that actually is pretty ironically, might be close to on point. I mean, whatever you feel, you can call me a Kansas City hater. I have friends that are Chiefs fans. I let them be. They let me talk. I don't necessarily want to get on anyone's case, but we've got ourselves a Super Bowl. We kind of wanted a little bit of parity. We're not getting it because we got the two best teams. And I know Detroit's not one of them. So Philadelphia is going to have the opportunity. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to shut it down, and I'm going to send this to YouTube. If you really, and I understand this, I'll throw this before I'm going to segue off, and my friend Chad said this as well. He got mad at me one time, and he said, don't you like history? We're seeing greatness from Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't you want to see history? Don't you want to see the three-peat? No, it's never been done. We like seeing things that's never been done. If you're a team in the NFL and you have to deal with Patrick Mahomes and them doing everything they possibly can and getting referees' help and getting all this media attention with Taylor Swift, although it is not their fault, it's not anybody's fault that Travis Kelce slipped into Taylor Swift's DMs and got a date and they're still together. Some people put bets last year that he was going to ask her to marry her. Didn't happen. Maybe it'll be another one this year for FanDuel and DraftKings. I don't know. But if you see Kansas City in the Super Bowl, you're a team in the NFL, especially in the AFC, and you're going, what do we have to do to beat them? Patrick Mahomes does not care, and I've said this before as well. Patrick Mahomes does not care about being the villain. He ran 2 touchdowns on his own today because everybody's afraid to touch him. Ever since the Houston game, and nobody wants to hit him. Then when they do, it's too late. He's already in the end zone. He very well is going to surpass Brady if we're in this generation. And here I am, almost close to 50 years old. We have to deal with this. And he'll end up being the GOAT because Brady never three-peated. He had 2 dynasties, but he never three-peated. Because teams had to figure out how to beat him. The Giants did twice. Denver did to keep them away from the Super Bowl. So here we are. If you're a team in the NFL have to deal with Patrick Mahomes, you're going to have to start figuring out what you need to do in the offseason. especially the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Broncos. If you're Philadelphia, I say to you in closing, this is your opportunity to basically, not necessarily, you can't shut Kansas City up, because if you beat them, you stop them from keeping the three-peat, which is fine. The dynasty is still intact. This halts the championship run. It's like LeBron beating the Golden State Warriors. It was temporary, because right after that, Golden State loaded up and got Kevin Durant. This is your opportunity, Philadelphia. If Philadelphia people hear me, this is your chance to not necessarily, just kind of turn the wheels a little bit on that train and slow Patrick Mahomes down, because he doesn't care if he's the villain. He wants a three-peat. He wants everything. He wanted the undefeated season. Remember that. But if you want that Super Bowl and you want to be, we can hear all the Philadelphia people. No one likes us. We don't care. Well, here's the thing now. You're going back to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs kingdom and that dynasty. And you want to say no one likes us, we don't care? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. There is probably about 450 to 500 million people worldwide, except for a little dot in the middle of the country in Kansas City. And maybe a little specks every now and then. That whole country was blue and red that wanted to be Kansas City. That's now going to turn to Eagles green, because this is your opportunity. It's not necessarily your opportunity to become the hero. Do you need to be Iron Man to beat Thanos? This is your opportunity to do it. This is your opportunity to do it. And Mahomes messed you up 2 years ago. This is your opportunity to do it now. Oh, they'll say all the great things and they'll say all the positive things on, well, we respect Philadelphia. We understand this and that, blah, 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 blah. And we know what Mahomes talks so fast and it's ridiculous. You want to shut that train up. He knows what he wants. We know what Kansas City wants. Personally, I think they have the piece. And quite honestly, I think of how Philadelphia played today against Washington and how Kansas City had to survive against Buffalo. And Buffalo, it was on and off. And probably, quite honestly, Kansas City had pretty much firm control of that game. But Buffalo just kept coming back. But opportunities and missed 2-point conversions, they catch up to you. And Buffalo's actually fortunate that it was only ended up being a field goal game. They hit both those 2-point conversions. We're probably still playing. But those two calls, the interception that turned into a catch, and the fourth down are going to linger all through the interweb from this point forward. But Philadelphia, I think you may have the piece. And I look at both games of how Kansas City played and Philadelphia played. If Philadelphia plays the same way they played today against Washington, against Kansas City, and that defense, it's not going to be an overwhelming result. It might be enough for Philadelphia to win the Super Bowl. But we all know what Kansas City's going to do. They proved it 2 weeks ago against Houston. They proved it today against Buffalo. So Philadelphia, in a way of speaking, as I shut this down finally, I apologize for delaying the shutdown. Philadelphia, you're on the clock. You've got 2 weeks. You've got 2 weeks to not necessarily become a hero, not necessarily to be the team that pretty much everybody... It's not no one likes us, we don't care. We're all looking at you now. And for one night, we want to like you. You win the Super Bowl, we won't care either. We'll just be happy the Chiefs' kingdom does not win a three-peat. But it is what it is. Don't you love dynasties? Don't you love this Philly? This is for most of my Philly friends. You're on the clock.